Hello, welcome to part 2 on this series. As I mentioned yesterday, I am using the same example and telling a bit of a 4-part story today. So if you've missed part 1, go back to yesterday because it will make it all so much clearer. I will also try and link, bear with me on that. I'll see if I can link the videos together and connect them in some way so it makes sense. Leave it with me. Okay, so we're talking about money today because on a Tuesday I talk about money and pricing and packaging and investing and, making this thing called life and business work, not just in a dream big way, but in a financial way, because that's how we need to operate in life. So the first thing I want to talk about in terms of these photos or whatever investment that you're making, you have to be really clear on the potential ROI of this. Because sometimes what can happen is when you look at the initial investment, bear in mind, even though I'm a nearly 43-year-old woman, I can very easily go back to being a little girl and having like a £20 note and feeling that like such an excitement of it. I mean, because the £20 didn't come very often. That was like only for a birthday or something like that. But a crisp fiver, when you suddenly felt like you upgraded from coins into notes, that was great. Or £10 notes. And I can very quickly get into that. And so when I've made these big investments or small investments in my life, I have two things going on. What would that look like in cash? And I've mentioned about this year-long course that I did, which was close to £10,000. Like if I imagine £10,000 in my hand, that's game show money to me. That's like, whoa, that's still takes me to that place. And the second thing is, how long is that going to take me in working hours to actually make that amount of money? And of course, then I look at the ways that I work and the ease and flow that I have in my business and the possibilities of the internet. And as soon as I get back into my centered, nearly 43-year-old woman self, it makes sense to me. But really thinking about that number of what do you actually need in that moment. So when I was thinking about these headshots, for example, I wasn't just thinking about what's the amount for the actual photo shoot to pay the person. I had to think about my travel, the clothes, the hair, the makeup, the skincare in advance. I wanted to make sure that I had some good vegetables in my body so my skin looked and felt really good. So really being clear on that. But when I price all that up and I think about the ROI, it's an absolute no-brainer. And I think we have to keep connecting the potential of what we do to what is therefore possible. So having these headshots, for example, meant that I was in the game for a certain level of opportunities. And sometimes there's those moments where, something happens and it was like, well, my friend's mum just took this picture of me and it happened to open the next door. But I am really I'm building a career here. I'm doing this for real. I'm not doing it to just have a nice picture of myself that's going to be in my downstairs loo. This is my career and this is something that needs to be considered and thought about. So really connecting with this ROI. And again, if you're not clear on what this ROI might potentially be or the opportunities it can open, maybe it isn't the right thing. And so taking that time is always really, really useful. Number 2, I knew that these headshots, and I knew that when I've done other investments over the time, it is taking me to the next level in terms of being serious and professional. Serious, I mean, as in I'm committed, this is my job. Professional, I'm here to do what I say I'm going to do. Not necessarily serious as like, hi, I'm a serious businesswoman, don't mess with me, and this is my whole personality. But I'm not a dabbler, is what I'm saying. There are some people who are like, oh yeah, I was doing that for a while and then it got a bit hard and then I just like changed my mind about it. No, that is not how I am seeing this. Operating in that manner has not meant that I can still be doing this 25 years later. I've had to show up with that level of professionalism. So the cheap option, of course, would be like, Matt, I'm going to stand against our wardrobe door. Can you just take a couple of pictures of me? He could, but he's not a professional photographer. He's not going to light it in a certain way. He might happen to capture a part of my personality, but it's not necessarily in alignment with where I want to go. This also needs to be shared in terms of this point. I know that everybody is in different circumstances. So that 300 quid to get some headshot shoots, headshot pictures may feel so out of reach for you right now. Like, what? What are you talking about? 300 quid. And so in this moment, sometimes we have to, and I will show up for this all the time. It's not a now decision, but it may be, okay, a year from now, I want to do that. I'm going to commit to putting 30 quid away for the next 10 months. So I've got that money in a pot and then I'm ready to go. Now is not the right time, but next year is the right time. And I think that this is really key because there have been so many times where I've wanted to do courses or I've been wanted to be part of something, but it made no sense on paper because I needed to do other things in that moment. And so giving myself that full permission with no shame, no judgment to shelf it for another year is great as well. So I hope you get where I'm coming from here, that this sometimes isn't a priority for now to do all of these things. Like in the summer, we had to have a lot of roof work done, which was unexpected and very expensive. And it meant that I had to say no to some things because not only did I need to be on site and, be doing all of the things, and also when somebody goes up onto your roof, you have no idea what else they're going to find. Fortunately, they didn't find too much other stuff, so that was okay as well. But I am very protective of my nervous system in that moment. So, equally, there have been times where I've had the money there in my savings and I've still not made the move. That's interesting and telling to me often because I'm like, why am I not making the move? Why am I not spending the money? The money is there. What else is going on? And sometimes it's like, oh, I'm not making the move and I'm not spending the money because I'm frightened of what the outcome might be. So these situations, they're complex. They are complex. There's always other stuff going on. Number 3, I know that sometimes there are other obstacles going on. And I want to talk about this in terms of a mindset of, should I be spending this? Should I be thinking about this? And this happened very, very early in terms of my acting career. So when I went to drama school, it was so expensive to go, to not only attend the school, but to live in London and have all the extra money for the other things that it was like, it's not a requirement, but it was sort of expected. So every holiday, every break, every Saturday, I worked. And I was also one of the only ones out of my friends, or I was the only one out of my friends who went to drama school and did this kind of training. So my friends were traveling, they were going to a festival in Barcelona for the weekend. They were like, let's all do this. And there were many things that I had to say no to. And that sometimes played with my mindset because I was moving away, or I was having to have conversations where they might have thought I was just being flaky. But the truth is that I had to spend money in that strategic way from being very young. If I wanted to do this, it required a different way of operating if I was going to be successful and have longevity and actually do the things that I say that I was going to do. So this thing, if I said to, say, my friends, oh, I'm investing this amount of money instead of, I don't know, going to Paris for the weekend, they'd be like, oh, come on, like oh, wow, that's a lot of money. But you have to keep linking it to what you're actually trying to do in the world. And sometimes that means having difficult conversations. That means sometimes saying no to somebody or yes to something else. Sometimes it's complex. Number 4, budgeting really clearly and abundantly for the situation. Now, if with this headshot shoot, I mean, I would, maybe I'll do this next time. I would have loved to have been that person who shows up in a taxi, who maybe took an assistant along who was going to sort out my clothes and do all of these things. But in that moment, I did the things that I sort of prioritized. So I went and got a professional blow dry. I invested in some makeup. I bought some new clothes. So like there were different things that I did in there. But whenever you are doing budgets for something, I want you to be very generous with what it's going to cost, what it's going to take. Have a backup plan. And so when we're thinking about resources of all the focus, all the time, all the energy, people will always say it's going to take more money than you think. And so I've also realized that when I go into something scrimping and saving and holding back and being tight with myself and constricted, that shows up in the work. And so now what I've learned to do, instead of going into it like that, I have now learned to take my time to get the things in place that I know that I need, that I know that are going to benefit me before I do the thing. You know, the thing of buy cheap, buy twice scenario. I often think about this, about a strapless bra. I'm going back to the early 2000s here in the late 90s, where boob tubes were everywhere. And to get a effective strapless bra takes quite some doing. The technology and the structural underwear scenario was not what it is now. And yet I knew I wanted to wear the boob tube. And it was one of those like handkerchief ones, you know, where you have the beading down. Anyway, I knew that it got to a stage where I was wearing boob tubes so much, I needed to get a proper bra. Because you might start with I'll just wear my normal bra and pull down the sleeves and like tuck them in or like tie them at the back or whatever the heck that I was doing. And I think that this is the case sometimes where we do things on the cheap, we bootstrap, we scrimp and save, or we say it doesn't matter, or we do things on a budget. And so I want you to play around with this idea of, what if I actually borrowed this thing? Or what if I looked at a different way of doing it? Or what if I actually gave myself another 6 months so I was in this position to feel really good about this process? Budgeting from that place where you get what you need is so key. Number 5, how are you going to make this happen financially and a priority? And we're going to be talking a lot more about this in Thursday's video about your future self and connecting to that. There is always going to be another bill, another priority, another something or someone or some outgoing that is going to be required from us. And I think about this sometimes in like when I make a really nice dinner for my family. I make a nice dinner. I often do a roast chicken on a Sunday. And then Monday comes around, I'm like, Oh, I've got to make another dinner. Oh, right. Okay. Here we go. We're on that train again. And that dinner time, it comes round so quickly. And so this thing of I don't have the time, something else is taking a priority, I've got to put my money elsewhere. We have to get familiar and acknowledge with the fact that that's always going to be the case. It's always going to be the case. There's always going to be some other requirement of you. And so, how are you going to not only acknowledge that, but still make time for you? And sometimes that comes with sacrifice. Sometimes that is, I've said it to my partner sometimes, and I was probably thinking in December where I said, don't worry about a Christmas present for me because I haven't got loads of money this was like our second Christmas with our son. I haven't got loads of money to spend on you and I'm going to get these headshots and is this okay? Yes, of course, it was absolutely fine. But again, going back to what other people do and how other people spend money, I was not that year doing a Christmas trail for my partner going, oh my gosh, I've just bought you 27 presents and I've taken them all across the stairs. I wasn't doing that. And we've definitely had those moments in our life where it's let's just focus on what we need to do in that moment rather than the other things. I hope that's been useful. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we're talking about visibility and putting yourself out there and being available for opportunities, especially with link to this as the backdrop. I hope you like it. Hope you subscribe. Hope you follow along. And I'll see you then. Bye.